For any loss arising from any person or body relying on any statement, discussion, recommendation or decision made during this meeting, where an application for an approval, a licence or the like is considered or determined during the meeting, the City warns that neither the applicant nor any other person or body should rely upon the discussion or determination until written notice of either an approval, the conditions of which relate to it, or a refusal of the application has been issued by the City. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording will also be archived and made available on the City's website. If you choose to participate during a public question time, public statement time, it is assumed that your consent is given. We have none of those happening. Reminder that electronic, visual or audio recording or transmitting devices or instruments is permitted to be used. A person who breaches the provision of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Law 2019 will be immediately asked to leave the premises. Attendance and apologies. We have Councillor Congreton who's on leave and Councillor Johnson who has not arrived. Declarations of financial interest, proximity interest and interest affecting impartiality.
As per the previous one, Mr.
Previous. Okay, that brings us now to item 6.1, annual meeting of electors, which is now motion number 16, and Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion reads that the Council resolves to request the CEO to present a report to Council on the feasibility, structure and desirability of the establishment of a Heritage Advisory Group to review local heritage surveys, formerly local government inventory, with community input.
Have a seconder. Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? No one against. Carried. I now have a motion to adopt, councillors, to those recommendations from the meeting, which is motions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14 and 17. Be adopted. Move to Councillor McCulloch. Have a seconder. Councillor Parry. No against. Declare that carried. And those other items on the agenda, councillors, that were not withdrawn, also be adopted. Move Councillor Lucas, second to Councillor Scanlon. Anyone against? That carried. That now takes us to Part C, and item C 1.1 is Councillor Catalano.
Additional notice of motion for the next meeting.
There are notice motions for the next meeting. No, C 1.1 is this meeting, isn't it?
Is it for this meeting?
Yes.
It's for this meeting.
Councillor Catalano, you're up.
Okay, so I'll read it out. Actually, I'm making some changes to what's in the agenda.
Okay. So you're moving it, and you're amending your original motion.
I am actually, yes.
Okay. Let's hear it.
So that the council resolve to 1, request the CEO prepare, instead of initiate, prepare is what I really meant there, a 5-year implementation plan for Midland Oval New Junction project that includes details of A, works to be implemented, including road and other infrastructure construction, demolitions, land acquisitions, sale of land and any other construction works. B, costings for works to be done by the City of Swan. C, how the works will be financed by the City of Swan. D, any further planning and design to be conducted. And 2, the 5-year implementation plan to be made available to Council for endorsement by May 2020, ordinary meeting of Council. The 5-year implementation plan to be made public after endorsement by Council.
Okay, I have a seconder. Second to Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? Councillor Lucas, do you wish to debate it, Councillor? Briefly. Councillor Catalano, you open the debate.
Okay. Thank you. Councillors, as we know, this is privatisation of land that has been public for over 100 years. The business plan was endorsed in 2017, and in 2018 the business plan was provided that had plenty of scenarios, but didn't actually give a clear implementation plan. Now, when I looked at the business plan, it sort of concerned me that there was a possibility of between $125 to $160 million of ratepayers' funds that are going to be expended on this project, with we know the $33 million already having been spent on buying properties around the Oval. So, you know, this could be a $200 million project, depending on which scenario is going to be chosen. And I must say, I was very shocked to find out that actually there is no scenario that's been chosen. In fact, we're just going to see how it goes. We know that there's going to be more properties purchased. We know that there's going to be up to $48 million spent on the public realm. We're not quite sure what that actually means. Certainly not in the next 5 years. We don't know what that means without an implementation plan. We really don't know what is actually going to be spent. So what we've got effectively is council deciding on what is a massive project in the centre of the City of Swan administrative centre of the City of Swan. Massive project, and it's being decided on an ad hoc basis, it seems to me. So we've got all these particular things that are going to be happening or could be happening, but we just don't know when, where, how much it's going to cost us. In at least not even the next 5 years. And the kind of things that have happened is that we've ended up with a mini golf course on what is effectively supposed to be public public sort of access way. So how long is that going to go before? How long is that going to continue? That was not in the business plan, and it's just all in the nature of, well, we're just seeing how it goes. I mean, as I say, this is an absolutely massive plan. We've got a massive amount of planning blight in Midland due to this. We've got houses that are currently being purchased by the City of Swan that are being squatted. Now I hear that they've been boarded up. And I and my fellow councillors, I believe, and the ratepayers, we just don't know how this plan is going to progress and how much it's going to cost us, and indeed, if and when it's ever going to be finished. You know, the ratepayers in my ward, I'm sure. Well, I know they're not happy with this. In the meantime, they can't get decent parks for their kids, safe parks for their themselves and their animals to recreate in. You know, there's no lighting equipment, can't afford lighting equipment for parks. We've got no CCTV and security. Basic footpaths and maintenance done in suburbs. I mean, these are the complaints we're getting all the time, and we're told that there's no funds allocated to it. And yet we've got this huge, immense, perhaps $200 million project that we're just sort of... it's just been done on an ad hoc basis. So then that leaves me to think we're just going to see how it goes. Well, it leaves me to think that, I mean, you can't even build a house without a plan and a budget, because it's probably never going to be finished, let alone within the amount of money
1 minute,
that you can
Councillor.
afford. So this, to me, without an implementation plan, is basically we're on course for what I consider to be a massive ad hoc disaster. And I think it's going to cost, if we don't get on track and actually have a plan, we're going to, it's not going to be a success for Midland, it's not going to be a success for the City of Swan, and goodness knows how much it's going to cost our ratepayers. So our ratepayers deserve to know what's going on. We have to know what's going on. And I think all of us deserve no less than that. I think it's irresponsible to carry on in this manner. So it's time that an implementation was laid before us.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. That's your
Thank
5
you.
minutes. Thank you. Yes, before we proceed, just like to clarify something. Councillor John Watson was announced as being on leave at the start of the special meeting. Councillor Scanlon, you advised me that he was going to be here at 5 to 8. Apparently that is not the case, so can I have it on record that Councillor Johnson is still on leave? Thank you. Okay. Councillor Kiley is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Catalano, for bringing this motion forward. It's important that we be accountable to the community for how we spend the money, and this is what this motion is about. Effectively, it is about looking at the income and expenditure we will have going forward for the next 5 years. It provides certainty to the developers in the area, particularly Mr. DeMol, and it provides certainty for the community, and that's what this motion does. If we have a 5-year plan, we then know where we're going for the next 5 years. We can then possibly attract developers, although we've only been successful in, I believe, one in the last so many years in bringing that one developer on. But this 5-year plan might permit other developers to come on board where they can see exactly what we are going to be putting into this area. Effectively, we're providing a budget. We're balancing the budget in terms of looking at the income and expenditure. We can't simply wait for the property market to rebound in terms of moving this whole project forward. It's simply going to take too long. If we wait around for another 15 to 20 years to implement the whole MORP, the Midland Oval Redevelopment Plan, then it's going to 20 years. The community just can't wait that long. We need to get some certainty going forward, and this motion does that. I note that Wellington Square within the city, they've got a plan forward to revitalise that area, which is the overall intent of the Midland Oval Redevelopment Plan, was to revitalise and activate the area. But I believe that the Wellington Square program is only going to cost $18 million, and they're going to achieve that within a very short time frame compared to what the Midland Oval Redevelopment Plan will take the City of Swan to implement, possibly up to 15 to 20 years. And that, of course, is conditional on the rebounding of the property market, whereby we can actually bring in some money from the sales of land that we've gone ahead and purchased to the value of $32.5 million. If not, there's a little bit more to be added to that figure as well. So this motion brings certainty to the community, it brings certainty to the developers, and I encourage you to support it because it makes sure that we move this MORP forward and provide certainty to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Lucas double heat. Who wants to go first? He's letting you go, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I see a lot of danger in this motion. One of the things that the council does need is flexibility. Now, from a business perspective, you might look at Midland development and say, business is a bit quiet at the moment. We should wait before we start to implement plans. The concept here works to be implemented, including roads and infrastructure. If you're going to put that into a plan, which effectively gives staff the direction to do stuff, then you're effectively forcing the matter, making it rather difficult for staff to say, okay, well, there's bad economic conditions or we don't have the money or whatever. The whole concept of the plan, as I see it, is that we have a plan already, an approved plan, and we roll it out in a structured way as and when the council, because the council makes decisions on a rolling basis to implement and to put the thing together. So I don't think that doing this and to basically try and formulate a fixed set of rules is a good thing. You need the flexibility to be able to do things either earlier if you get a sudden uptake or later if necessary. So for me, we've already got the plan in place, we've got it rolling, the structure's there, we should let staff get on with their job because that's what they've been given the go-ahead to do from the council. So I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, speak up for the motion. Question, Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, through you to the staff, does this motion prevent the staff having any flexibility at all on the project?
See it?
No, but the plan is, as just been said by Councillor Henderson, a week later I could get an offer on some other piece of land and there's a few people running around. The plan would have to change and come back to council to change the plan.
Councillor Bedovnik.
Just to clarify, so if that's the case, it sounds like this motion is proposing for things to be quite loose and for the CEO to prepare the plan and to advise council. It doesn't sound like we're locking into anything. Is that correct?
Well, you're asking staff to prepare a whole lot of information which they've got. We can pull that together, but then that might change the plan as it goes along because something might come up.
Okay. Councillor, are you or are you not on leave?
Obviously not here.
Thank you. Okay. Speaker for the motion. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm against the motion for a few reasons, but one of them is next weekend we have our first budget meeting, and I thought it would be paramount to get the information from the staff on this project. I haven't had time to read my thick A4 folder that was couriered out. I've read part of the CEO's introduction, but I haven't got down to the nitty-gritty figures. And I think flexibility is what we need. So between February and July, until we adopt our next budget, most of our accounting staff will be busy working on getting a balanced budget, looking at the different rating options that council may wish to adopt. I don't think they've actually got time to now focus on a 5-year implementation plan, new junction. I don't think Councillor Catalano was right saying it's the privatisation of public land. It's always been owned in fee simple. It may have been public open space, but it was never owned by the public. It was always owned by the city and previous entities prior to the city. But I think that having the flexibility, and I'd like to see eventually, after we've gone through our budget process, perhaps a further briefing session to come for council. I believe Councillor Catalano and Councillor Kiley may have had some one-on-one meetings with Miss Lay and other staff about this. Well, they may have information that you and I haven't got, and I think through a briefing session we can ask questions which they may have information for. So I think it's just a bit premature. I would rather having that flexibility, as mentioned by Councillor Henderson, because things do change. We have got a plan and it changes as different scenarios arise. I don't want the staff spending a lot of time at this very important time of the year when they should be focused on those budget issues that will be coming to the forefront in July. Between now and July, I think we've got 4, 5 or even 6 items just to deal with the current budget that we'll be adopting hopefully on the 1st of July. And I think we need to concentrate on that, and I have no problem with this item coming back to a full briefing of council in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Speaker for the motion. Councillor Bedovnik.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to address a couple of things. The flexibility aspect, from what I understand, this motion is flexible. There's an opportunity to change as we go along. From what I understand, surely the staff would have an idea of roads, timeframes, land acquisitions and construction works. I don't think there's anything here that's being proposed that should be a surprise to anybody. I am a Midland Ward councillor. I must say I have no idea of the current time frame. I do support a briefing. I think that's important as well. I don't think that this motion is opposed to a briefing. I don't think it's opposed to being flexible. I think it's simply gathering information that we should already have and should already be there in order to just brief everybody. I don't think it's a very radical motion. It really is, from what I understand of it, it's just proposing to condense information that should already be available to us and put it in a way that I expect will be made clear in a briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bedovnik. Speaker against the motion. Councillor McCulloch.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, as we know, and as Councillor Lucas has reiterated, staff are hard at work with budget and a lot of other things. We know that within this plan, and we know that within the Midland Oval redevelopment plan and everything that surrounds that, we have information available in the business plan adopted by Council on the 11th of April 2018. We also have information within the annual budget 2019-2020, which shows following works over the next 4 years. And we've seen that with the budget forecast right through to 2023, the capital revenue, the capital expenditure, development costs, development infrastructure, net funding sources, etc. So I'm sure that we would all be over that and looking at those projections and asking questions as we see fit. Councillors, we also know this project is in progress, and it's subsequent to council resolutions. And those operations are transient and various factors actually, may be changed. And they're all things that we as a council will be made aware of. And those current changes being made might include land acquisitions following recent council resolutions and some of those land swap issues that we've talked about, as well as fluctuating unit rates for civil and streetscapes, etc. So the implementation of this work is subject to change, and we know that Council's adoption of that annual budget for the work in each year preceding planned implementation, further details will be provided to us and as part of our annual budget process. So let's not reinvent the wheel, let's not take up valuable staff time in things that we already have, that we can access, that we can liaise with other officers and executives to be fully across this and not waste time any further and just proceed with where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCulloch. Speaker for the motion. Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I really enjoy hearing everyone's perspective on this and why we should or shouldn't adopt it. And I believe that we absolutely should adopt this motion. It's a step forward to being open and accountable in line with community expectations. So I too attended a meeting with Councillors Kylie and Catalano, with many of these staff members sitting behind us, and I learnt that they do have a lot of information, and as the CEO also said, the staff have this information. So we talked to the staff about the timeline, and yes, March was too soon. So Councillor Catalano discussed with the staff and has since amended it to May to give them a little bit more time, bearing in mind that the budget work is coming up. So I'd just like to speak a little bit about the knowledge that this is putting out to the community, because they do feel, I hear as a councillor for this ward, that people don't know what's going on. They feel there's a great level of secrecy. They feel they don't know what's going on. Rumours abound. It's time, let's just tell everyone what we're doing. Let's tell people what we're doing. There was a great deal of hurt in this community. So, was it in 2018? I was a councillor for this ward, and I didn't know when the road was going to be built through the Oval. I'm a councillor for the ward for the City of Swan. I wanted to know. I'd asked lots of questions about the development, and I didn't know when the road was going to be developed. I had calls from the community saying the police were circling the Oval, a call from a local Indigenous woman begging me to help her because the spirits had not been released from the land. I ran to the City of Swan admin building and tried to help her, but I couldn't. Had I have known when the road was going to be built through the Oval, perhaps we could have organised a ceremony. But it was too late. The bulldozer went through, and I stood there with Councillor Kylie, watching the bulldozer go through with a small crowd of very concerned residents. So that's my anecdotal story as to why I believe that community should be informed of when this project is moving forward. People need to be brought along the journey. People need to know when this project is moving forward, and it can be a wonderful success, and it will be a wonderful success when we work together with the community, not in fear of the community, with the community. The community love Midland. The community want the best for Midland. We want the best for Midland. We all have different views. We all have different perspectives. Let's teach each other what we know and come together and put this plan into place. The staff have the information there. People want to know what's going to happen. They want to be involved. They want to know how much it's going to cost. It's a 5-year plan to be made public after endorsement by the council. Please support this motion. It's very important to the people.
Thank you, Councillor Councillor Scanlon. Speaker against the motion? Speaker for the motion? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'm fascinated that there would be councillors actually against this. Councillors, we've been planning this for 60 years. It's the biggest project I believe the city has ever tried. It's one of the most expensive projects we've ever tried. Had we not attempted this project, we would already have a swimming pool in Ellenbrook.
Point of order, Councillor, that is not the case at all.
Incorrect, Mr Mayor.
Well, it is, Councillor, because there was never any budget and we didn't have any federal funding, so can you retract that statement?
Certainly not, Mr Mayor. It's a fact.
Well, no, it's not.
Yes, it is. Now, if it's subject to change, we should have a plan. Plans are all about setting a direction in a time of change. We've got to have a plan. And this is an obvious and sensible thing that should have been done a long time ago. I'm amazed we don't have it, and we are going to get it. Now, councillors, this is about a budget and a financial plan for the Midland Oval redevelopment. There's a number of different ways in which this financial plan needs to manifest itself. Here we've got the costs. But the question is, where's the budget? How much money are we actually going to spend on it? What are the financial plans for this? Councillors, this is comparable on a much smaller scale with the Barangaroo development in Sydney. That has a proper 10-year plan. It has a cash flow, balance sheet, P&L. It's very clear where it's going. It has a very clear project finance statement. It's very clear what the internal rate of return and the net present value of the project are. In Barangaroo, they know what they're doing. But here, unfortunately, we don't have any financial information in one coherent location explaining what we're doing. The only thing we've had that apparently says it's a wonderful thing to do is some very interesting economic input-output factors, which tell us apparently the Chinese are going to make 500 billion out of us. Councillors, we have to go ahead with this. If you look at the small details of what's going on there, as Councillor Scanlon pointed out, we didn't know when the road was going across. But interestingly, when I go and look at the site, and I do look at it from time to time, for instance, I can't understand, some of the trees have been planted, but there are some empty concrete locations where trees are obviously going to go. Now, I've asked when they're going to be planted, and I know when they're going to be planted, but the question is, why weren't they planted in the first place? So that tree planting plan should have been in there. There are other ways that we could be looking at the costs of this, councillors. I think we need to be considering what its CO2 contribution is going to be. So all that concrete has an enormous CO2 contribution. That perhaps should be in the plan as well. And we need to look at the net CO2 budget for this over the next 50 years. Councillors, there's an awful lot of things we need to do. The project is heading in the wrong direction. This 5-year implementation plan will give us a chance to get a handle on it. I would also like to address something that was said earlier, and I do apologise for arriving to this meeting late. I did give leave of absence notice, but it's an important meeting. And that question is, it doesn't appear to be in the budget papers. I've had a flick through the budget papers. I've read it. I can't find any really detailed mention of it. So I asked for the commercialisation policy, I wanted to understand the cash flow, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet, so that we can understand whether we're actually getting a return on investment from our commercialisation policy. This oval redevelopment is a fundamental and core part of that. An enormous amount of our ratepayers' capital is tied up in it, and yet we don't know whether we're making any money out of it. So this motion and this 5-year implementation plan starts to set us on a path that any reasonable investor would expect. So, councillors, this is entirely reasonable. It's what any organisation that had shareholders would be wanting to do, and it's what Barangaroo certainly have as well. So we should have it here in Midland. So, councillors, I urge you to support this. It's basic finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Speaking against the motion? Any speakers for or against? No, you've already spoken, Councillor, so you can't have a question. So who else got a question?
Sorry, I've got a question through you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, come on in.
I was just going to ask, councillors have raised the issue of time, so I just wanted to ask staff, what's the time frame if they had to put this together?
Well, the motion currently says for a May meeting.
Yes, the question is, would it be onerous, would it be difficult, would it be quite easy to get the information?
Through you, Mr Mayor, one of the slides in the budget papers for Saturday's workshop shows over the next 5 years the proposed works and a breakdown of the costing, and it shows you how it's changed over time, trying to illustrate the point that this continues to evolve as new information comes to hand. The parts of that motion which won't be ready until budget adoption is the financing, because that must be done in light of the whole of the City of Swan's responsibility in terms of debt leveraging and in terms of its long-term financial planning.
Thank you. Any speakers for or against? In that case, no more speakers. Put the vote. Those in favour? Sorry, humble apologies. Right reply, Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. I just wanted to address a few things that were raised. We're going to just see how the economic situation goes. I remember when that the original plans for purchasing properties around the Oval, which came to that $32.5 million, was done without letting the public know, because they didn't want any land banking. But actually it seems that that's what we're going to be doing if we're just going to wait and see how the economy shapes up. This project wasn't about land banking. Structured way, well, I'm sorry, but I just do not know what the structure is. I know the scenarios, and there's 12 of them, and actually maybe even 4 of them are out of date, because so long has, time has passed, and actually 4 of those scenarios can't be counted anymore. But I don't know what the structure is. I don't know it. And about changing the plan, this is a plan. You've got to start somewhere with a plan. You can always change the plan, and yes, it should be brought to council if there's going to be a change to plan. Of course it should be. And the reasons why the plan's got to be changed, that's fine. That's what council's here for, to make those kind of decisions. But I tell you what, without a plan, do you know what? We don't know where we're going wrong, because we cannot even review what we're currently doing, because we don't have anything to review. That's what plans are for. They're important to review the progress. Now, this is 2 years. 3 years has gone on since this was endorsed by council, 2 years since the business plan, and we still don't know if we've made the right decision, for instance, putting the mini golf course there, and what other things that's gone in the meantime to do with property purchases and what have you. So, I mean, it's all very well to talk about, a few figures on paper, but that's not enough. That is not a plan. That's, what have we got here? Roadworks. What roadworks? Which roadworks in particular? What are we talking about? Public open space? What? What are we talking about? I want to know about subdivisions. I want to know how the subdivision's going. I want to know which part's going to be subdivided first, what's going to be subdivided second in the next 5 years, third, what's going to be done in the next 5 years. How much of this project is going to be actually finished in the planning stage? That's what I want to know. Because you know why? Otherwise, this is going to cost our ratepayers far more than the $200 million that's in the business plan. And I just want to say, whenever I've raised in this council chamber the figure of 200,000, I'm poo-pooed and told, oh, no, it's not going to cost that much. Well, 200 million. Well, I want to know, if it's not going to cost 200 million, how much is it going to cost? Because the ratepayers of Altone want to know, because they want their amenity and services attended to. And actually, if it's going to cost less than 200 million, good. I want to see that in the plan as well. So that's it. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about creating a wheel. We haven't even got a wheel. We've got scenarios. We've got 12 scenarios, and we don't have a plan.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. That's your 3 minutes. I put the motion. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 7. Okay, I'll vote the way I did. Vote against. Motion's lost. Thank you, councillors. Notice the motion to be considered at next council meeting. At this point in time, I don't have any. None. Okay, motion to go behind closed doors. Can we have two confidential items to consider? Councillor Parry, seconded Councillor McCulloch. Is anyone against?